Treasurer Weddle.
Here.
Vice Treasurer Battisti.
Here.
Chief Justice Nolan.
Here.
Chief of Staff Belosny.
Yes, sir, here.
Director of PR Pearl. College Counsel Patel.
Here.
Oh, he's absent.
No, you're good.
He's absent. He's at the faculty assembly.
Oh, got it.
Yep.
Pro Temp Mavros.
Here.
Senator Ahmed. Senator Candela.
Here.
Senator Chaput.
Here.
Senator Cortez. Senator Fisher.
Here.
Senator Velez.
Here.
Senator Wu.
Here.
Senator Zapata. Advisor George. Advisor Wadsworth. Webb. CFB. Wildcat Media. Wildcat Esports. SAC is excused, and ResLife. Right. We will now move into the approval of the minutes of 4/17 and the agenda of today. Is there any discussion on the minutes and agenda? Senator Chaput.
Within the open forum on resolution 2425-38, what is, the motion was rescinded for tabling that? Is that what that votes on, or is that vote on for the general resolution?
General. It's the whole resolution.
I'm sorry, what was the answer? I couldn't hear you.
It's the whole resolution.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion on our minutes and agenda? All right. Seeing that there's no further discussion, we'll move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, that passes. We will now move into announcements. Our audience member, you can.
If with last week's meeting, with how heated it got, and with the potential legislation on the docket, as Chief Engineer of Media, I feel like I need to make this announcement. I want to remind everyone that the mics that you have in front of you are a privilege, not a right. With that being said, media is not going to condone any yelling into our mics this meeting or any loud speech. This is supposed to be a civil meeting, and while there might be differing opinions, there should never be a reason to raise your voice during this meeting. So with that, media is going to reserve their right to, if you do get loud or if you do get yelling into our mics, we will lower your voice, or if it is loud enough, we will mute you. That is all.
There are no more announcements. Moving on to guest speakers. There are no guest speakers. Moving into executive reports. Our president.
Hi, everyone. Just providing a quick report. Last meeting, there was a resolution on the table to issue strikes. This process for the strikes was modified, and it's being handled internally for privacy and integrity reasons. I apologize for this resolution coming to the table. I yield.
Our vice president. No report. Our treasurer.
Hi, everyone. I'm guessing everyone saw the stipend direct deposit form email that went out earlier this week. If you haven't yet filed your direct deposit information with auxiliary services, I would highly encourage that you do so. It's a lot easier than having to deal with either being mailed a check or picking a check up from auxiliary services. And the other piece of that email is transition documents, especially to our organization representatives. Ensure that all of your organization members are filing transition documents, training documents for the incoming next year students. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to ask me afterwards or during open forum. I yield.
Our chief of staff. Our chief justice.
Hello, everyone. As you can see, on the table this week is the resolution pertaining to the petition that was submitted last week. As a means of reducing conflict of interest on my own part, since this is essentially a resolution attempting to reverse a decision I was a part of, I allowed the petitioners to have full freedom to write their own resolution. I had no hand beyond basic oversight, review, and suggestions that they were fully optional, and I don't believe any of them were implemented, in order to reduce my conflict of interest and give the petitioners the full freedom and liberty they deserve to voice their opinions and concerns. I yield.
Moving into director reports. ResLife.
No report.
Director of PR. Our advisors. Right, now moving into committee reports. Budget Committee.
Last week, thank you very much. It's been submitted to the administration for review and approval. My understanding is that so far myself, the president, and our advisor has signed it. I believe we're still waiting on the vice president of student affairs, but I'm sure they'll get to it soon. When I have an update on that, I'll be sure to let you know. Just because the budget is passed and is in the process of being approved does not mean budget committee is over. We are planning on submitting financial policy to the table this week. It got pushed back to next week. I would highly encourage every single senator at this horseshoe who is free tomorrow 2 to 4 p.m. to come to budget committee. We'll be doing informational review of financial policy and the changes we're going through. Any of our audience members, more than welcome to come. We'd love to see you there. I yield.
Class gift. Food Committee.
I just wanted to thank everyone for a great year. After a vote, we had decided to make yesterday's meeting our last one. As we discussed the transition documents, I just wanted to thank everyone again for a great year, and I hope to see you go again next year. I yield.
Policy Committee. No report. Safety and Facilities.
We had our second last meeting tomorrow in the SGU conference room, drafting the last resolution
year and also be preparing transition documents. I yield. Thank you.
Student Center Advisory.
The committee, we had a very short meeting last Thursday, 4/17/2025. In the meeting, we discussed, I gave progress on a lot of our projects about committee lounge items. The felt, I do have bad news. One of the tables is getting repaired tonight. I did get last night at casino night, I got a very unfortunate text saying that the company that they ordered the felt from, even though they ordered 3, were only delivered 1, so we have made a compromise. They are repairing one of the tables today, and the other 2 will be repaired next week. I also have an idea. I'm hoping to memorialize the felts, because those are the original felts, so I'm going to bring up an idea next meeting what we should do with them. My idea was have Pool Club and maybe SGU or the committee sign them and maybe hang that in the game room. Moving on, the next meeting, our second to last meeting will be today, 4/24/2025 in the SGU conference room, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Hope to see you all there. These meetings are open to the public. I yield.
Student Success and Technology.
The year, and please be aware of your emails, your inbox. We are releasing a survey to get more feedback from the students, and also as well transition documents. And we are meeting as usual today 4 to 5, so please show up. I yield.
Wellness and Inclusion has no report. Org reports. Web.
Your help last night to make casino night the way it was. We set a new record attendance of 350 students. It has been such an amazing week so far, and we are continuing tonight with our SC takeover of late night at Poly with a milkshake bar, bowling alleys, and retro games, 8 to 10, and then we're starting to hand out the t-shirts. It's not going to be the full bunch. It's going to be first come, first serve. The rest of the teachers will be handed out on Carnival Day. And on that note, an important update, it'll be going out on our socials and everywhere else too. Carnival Day is being moved to the field house just due to weather. The ride update though, if it's pouring rain, the rides will be shut down. If it's still just sprinkling or anything, the rides will be still running, they said. So we're okay with that. So don't worry, it's still gonna be a really super fun day. So I yield.
CFB.
Walking through meeting minutes we've gotten in, we've unfolded several clubs already. We're also going through making sure clubs are active on their current requirements for the SGU. I yield back.
Wildcat Media.
And it's up to the print shop now. I yield.
Wildcat Esports.
Next semester, since we have a lot of graduating officers. But other than that, overall successful year. The esports semester is over. That's it. I yield.
That concludes the org reports. Now moving into old business. There is no old business, so we'll be moving into new business. Resolution 2425-40, Senator Velez.
Point of clarification. Motion to accept Senate Resolution 2425-40.
Do they need a motion since it was submitted by the Chief Justice from a... Okay. Do you need a second? I mean.
Yeah, you need a second.
Okay. Seconded by Senator Zapata.
Please hold while I get the cheat sheet. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. All right, we, the Senate of SUNY Poly, student government at Utica, do hereby resolve. Wait, am I right?
Just gotta
to
read
resolve, whereas the students of SUNY Poly have submitted a petition to the Senate on April 17th, 2025, and the purpose of the petition was thusly. This petition aims to reverse the irresponsible decision of the election committee to remove Grayson Weddle and Kaylee Sora from the 2025 spring executive election. These candidates were removed because they did not properly report that they had seen other candidates' campaign posters being improperly removed despite there being no expectation of reporting election concerns. The authors believe that this is an unfair decision because it takes away the voices of hundreds of students as their votes were invalidated. And as the 2025 spring executive election has already concluded, therefore be it enacted that the student government at Utica Senate shall restore Grayson Weddle and Kaylee Lasora to the ballot for their respective positions, and the student government at Utica Senate shall reopen the spring 2025 executive election with the advisement of and criticism of election committee, therefore be it resolved, Grayson Weddle and Kaylee Lasora will be restored to their positions on the ballot, and the 2025 spring executive election will be reopened, and be it finally resolved, the student government at Utica will hold a fair election. Damn.
All right. Is there any discussion for this resolution? Our pro temp.
First bullet point under enacted that states that the student government of Utica shall restore Grayson Weddle and Kayla Sorso to the ballot to their respective positions, and also remove the first bullet point under resolved. Grayson Weddle and Kaylee Lasorsa will be restored to positions on the ballot, and I yield.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Cortez. Is there any discussion in the motion to remove those two bullet points? Our treasurer.
That fundamentally alters the point of the petition. If that was legislation that the Senate wished to bring forward, they should have brought it forward. Any senator is welcome to submit a resolution or submit, advice to election committee. You are altering the petition such that it does not reflect the true intentions of the students who signed it and its authors. I yield.
Our advisors.
It's the right of the senator to edit a resolution, though. Am I incorrect? I understand that the resolution is stated in the legislation, but editing the resolution is a right within the Senate. I yield.
Our president.
Can I ask why to our pro temp?
The reason being that this is part of the election committee's decision that they made unanimously using FERPA-related evidence that can't really be discussed out public, and through that evidence they had made this decision, and we should have some respect to that decision. Additionally, this resolution does kind of address two separate issues with the election, one being the removal of the two candidates, and the other giving the students whose votes were nullified the chance to revote. I yield.
Our treasurer.
Or the resolution rather does address two separate issues. I don't think removing one of those issues from discussion is the right thing to do. If you'd like to somehow further split them, I think that's something you could certainly look into. Presumably the Senate could, during a time when there is no further business before the Senate, make a motion to encourage election committee to reopen the election, regardless of the status of what happens to this resolution. But I think removing the voice of the hundreds of students who signed this petition is ill-advised. I yield.
Our pro temp.
Discussion of this issue is part of the voices too, because we had to discuss this and has to be open.
Our treasurer.
It's still two different issues, though, and the primary issue stated within the petition's purpose, as quoted within the resolution, is in regards to that first bullet point under enacted and that first bullet point under resolved. If you remove them, the petition itself is now fairly disconnected, or sorry, the resolution itself is now fairly disconnected from the petition. To me, it would make far more sense to vote on the resolution and then, depending on the result of the resolution, explore, or the result of the vote rather, explore rediscussing that second bullet point under enacted and that second bullet point under resolved. I yield.
Is there any more discussion on the motion to remove the first bullet point under enacted and resolved? Senator Wu.
Point of clarification, could the Chief Justice again read out the reason given for why they were removed for the Senate to hear? Sorry.
While he looks, I'm going to yield to our treasurer.
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, so I'm going to yield back to Senator Wu Senator Wu, my apologies, after I state this question. I have the email that I received from Election Committee. It was an official communication on why I personally was removed from the election. My understanding is Kaylee Lasorsa received an identical email. I'd be more than happy to share that if you'd like. I yield back to Senator Wu.
I prefer the official reason given to the Senate rather than the personal email, in my opinion.
I was probably just going to read off the same exact email. They were removed for violating professional code of conduct as well as bullying. Those are the official reasons that were stated. However, it's worth noting, as has been hashed time and time again, there are a multitude of reasons that cannot be openly discussed due to federal law. I yield.
Our treasurer.
To clarify, the email stated, after a thorough review based on unanimous decision among all voting delegates in our election committee and with uncontested support from SUNY Poly administrators, I am writing to inform you that your candidacy for the election has been revoked. This decision is due to violations from Article 20, Section 11 from our policies and procedures. To clarify, for those who have not memorized Article 20, Section 11 from our policies and procedures, it states, at all times, members of the student government at Utica are expected to uphold the highest standards of integrity and professionalism. The student body puts their trust in the student government at Utica to represent them, and as such, is to be considered a positive role model in those regards. To clarify the bit about members of the student government at Utica, per our Constitution, all students are members of the student government at Utica. However, within the context of this article, it's referring specifically to elected officials, as stated within Article 20, Section 1. The purpose of this document shall be to implement and enforce a set of regulations pertaining to members of the student government at Utica who have taken the oath of office in accordance with the student government at Utica governing documents. To return to the email, it said this decision is due to violations from Article 20, Section 11 from our policies and procedures, and Article 5, Section 5, Bullet Point 3 from the SGU Constitution, which states, bullying, hazing, discrimination, bigotry, or other behavior deemed disrespectful or inappropriate by the policies and procedures and Constitution of the student government at Utica. And to clarify that point, right, that also pertains directly to elected officials, as stated within the primary Section 5. All elected officials are to uphold the governing documents and student code of conduct at all times. The following list of violations include, but are not limited to, and then it lists a set of bullet points, including bullet point 3. The rest of the email essentially said what's probably understood. We have gathered substantial evidence demonstrating actions that are inconsistent with the expectations and responsibilities of a student government at Utica candidate. As such, this step was necessary to preserve the integrity of the election. The problem with this email, as it stands, in my opinion, is that the expectations and the responsibilities of the student government at Utica candidates are not outlined. If you look throughout the entire policies and procedures, they are not outlined. I discussed this with Election Committee, and one of the members of Election Committee brought up the candidate interest form. as some of y'all might recall from last meeting, despite the fact that if you sign an interest form that states you uphold policies and procedures, that does not mean all the policies and procedures within that document apply to you, right? I don't have to...
We are still in a motion about moving 2 bullet points, and I think we're going a little bit offhand.
Sorry. We're going a little offhand from the motion at hand, or the discussion of the motion at hand. I yield.
May I ask Pro Temp Mavros to restate the motion?
The motion, to summarize, is to remove the first bullet point under enacted and the first bullet point under resolved.
I'm going to yield to our advisors.
Just 2 quick things. I wanted to read what was read last week, just to answer your specific question. I'm pulling it directly from the email that was sent to the campus community that you all received the day after this meeting last week. The Student Government Election Committee has concluded its review of recent concerns regarding the integrity of the 2025 Student Government Executive Election. After conducting interviews, reviewing relevant video materials, and evaluating statements submitted by involved parties, the committee has determined that violations of the SGU Constitution and policies and procedures occurred which constituted interference in the election process. In accordance with these documents and our obligation to uphold a fair and equitable democratic process, the committee has taken appropriate action, including the disqualification of certain candidates. These decisions were made following a thorough and impartial review process. To respect the privacy of students involved and to comply with institutional policies and federal regulations, such as FERPA, specific details of the evidence and findings will remain confidential. However, the committee affirms that all decisions were made based on substantial documentation, in consultation with members of the Student Affairs team and appropriate SUNY Poly administrators, and in accordance with the governing documents of the student government at Utica. We sought the first available opportunity to speak about this with the student body and chose the SGU meeting on 4/17 to do so. Members of the Senate or student body who have questions may submit them utilizing the following form, and the election committee will respond as we are able. Please be assured that if you voted for one or both of the removed candidates, per Robert's Rules of Order, your vote is only nullified for those specific positions. Your vote is most certainly still included in the other portions of the election. We remain committed to transparency, fairness, and the integrity of student leadership at SUNY Polytechnic Institute. So that's what was read almost exactly last week. There was a few additions because it was sent to the community and it wasn't read for this community here. And I just wanted to mention that, Grayson, to your point, I know that you're trying to clarify between a candidate and an elected official, but you are an elected official within the organization who is running the election, and you can't separate yourself from that and say you're only a candidate and you didn't know. The ethics of an elected official still stand. I yield.
Media.
A question to the advisors and the Chief Justice. Did anyone submit any questions, and if so, what were the answers you gave them, or like what they were about? I was just, if you can say it, I yield to Jen George.
We received 2, and so they weren't really questions. One literally just said yes, so we couldn't do anything with that, and the other one said that they wanted their vote to count, and that's all that was said. I yield.
Just to remind everyone once again, we are still in the motion just to remove those first 2 bullet points. So let's try and keep it centered around that, just because we're kind of a little tangential. Our treasurer.
To our pro temp, given the rationale is to essentially split the issues, I'd like to entertain an amendment to the original motion to instead remove the second bullet point, not the first, from enacted, and the second bullet point, not the first, from resolved, so that we can clarify, or rather clear the air surrounding the first issue, and then move into discussion of the second issue at a later date. To be clear, it would not occur within the discussion of this resolution, as they would have been removed from this resolution, but we'd still be able to discuss it at a later date.
Can you restate that just a little more concise?
Absolutely. I'm looking to entertain a modification to the original motion to, instead of removing the first bullet point from enacted and the first bullet point from resolved, to instead remove the second bullet point from enacted and the second bullet point from resolved, such that we can clear the air surrounding, the first issue and then address the second issue quite literally within the order that they're presented.
Do we have a so moved? Okay, first, that entertainment of a motion dies because it was not so moved. You may now speak, Pro Tem.
So the reason why I chose the first bullet point to the second bullet point is because the first bullet point is more for discussion, if that makes sense. Whereas the second bullet point's mainly just serve the purpose of reopening the election, which from what I've heard and spoken to several individuals, everyone that I've seen is in favor of that. Whereas the first bullet points, it's more controversial, which is why I singled out those two to have the debate on those ones, because that's the more I yield.
With all...
Yeah, you could point of order any time.
I think it might make sense for the treasurer to become an audience member when it's something so personal that you're advocating for. I think it's hard to represent a treasurer position as well as a candidate position. And we've done this before many, many times when there's a conflict of an executive who has a personal opinion. They usually take the mic as an audience member. And Avinash can agree with me. This is not new. I just think it might make sense to not have a conflict there. I yield.
Senator Fisher.
Yeah, how long have we been on this motion? It's been about 30 minutes, give or take.
The meeting started 30 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
Our audience member.
Hi. So to the pro tem's point with regards to controversy, right, there are certainly controversial issues. The purpose of a legislative body is to decide and discuss and vote on those controversial issues. The legislative body should not be within their capacity stifling discussion on issues just because they feel that they are controversial. Regardless of whether or not something is unanimously approved or hotly contested, there should at least be discussion. That is the purpose of the Senate, and the purpose of the senators is to reflect their respective constituents. And for it to be contested, there must be two opposing sides. There must be people on one side that support it and people on another side that do not. Within the Senate, senators are expected to represent their respective class of students, as it were, and I would hope that all the senators are voting in accordance to what they believe is best and what best suits the needs of their respective classes. For some classes, that might be to vote down this resolution. For some classes, it might...
Hey, could you keep it more on track with the motion and not talk about senatorial duties? Please keep it on the motion.
The motion was to essentially take away from senatorial duties and give them the out of not having to discuss the resolution that was brought to the table by a petition of nearly 200 students. And to me, it feels like the Senate is a little bit shirking their duty if they do not at least discuss the resolution. They seem to be attempting to, through the motion of our pro temp Mavros, sidestep the discussion entirely. I would urge the Senate to at least discuss the issue. Your vote is your vote. You are not required to vote in favor of this resolution. You can vote any which way you would like, but I believe that the discussion should be had. I yield.
Is there any more discussion? Our pro temp.
Sidestep discussion, but step into it directly by facing the issue face on. I yield.
Our Chief Justice.
I would like to
Okay. I'll yield to you in a second. I did call on our Chief Justice first. I'll get you next, okay?
I would just like to remind you guys that they're not sidestepping discussion. The process of removing these bullet points encourages discussion. He is simply opening discussion as to whether these bullet points are necessary. I yield.
All right, esports.
Couple things quickly. For one, just kind of a point of clarification. So if this motion was to die or fail, they could just re-motion later into discussion, correct?
Yeah.
So there's that. So you can just turn this down and then bring it back if you wanted to. I kind of don't disagree slightly with your point, just because since this petition is, like, just by the nature, it's supposed to be mainly bringing back Grayson and Kaylee back to the ballot. The whole purpose is just kind of you are kind of sidestepping the conversation about what the actual resolution is fundamentally by asking if the bullet points are necessary in the first place. I think it's more important to just at least briefly discuss what the bullet points contain, and then you can motion if you determine that it's not as necessary to remove them. I yield to the floor.
Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to call the question on this motion?
So moved by Senator Fisher. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Cortez. All those in favor of a call to question, please raise your hand. Call to question is end all discussion and go into voting. Yes, for this motion. So the call to question would be, if you vote yes to the call to question, it would be, I want to end discussion and move into voting on the motion. And that motion, just again for clarification, is to remove the first bullet point under enacted and the first bullet point under resolved. Yep, of course. All right, all in favor of a call to question, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes. Wait, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 7, 1, 1. All right, we will now move into voting on the motion to remove the first bullet point under enacted and the first bullet point under resolved. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. Yeah, we do not have quorum on that vote because we need at least half plus one. And there was, yeah, we could revote. All right. All in favor of, the motion, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. All right, we do not have quorum again.
To our Chief Justice, what is the policy on if there are, I think it's 2 or 3 votes that don't go through? What is the policy on that?
I'm not positive. I'll review Robert's Rules of Order, but for now I'm going to encourage that we just keep on revoting.
It's in our policy.
It's in our policies.
It is.
I'll take a look at that, and I would also like to quickly point of order and just point out that Senator Mavros, you voted twice.
Pro Temp. Okay. All right, the motion has been rescinded. All right, we are now back into discussion on the resolution as a whole. Is there any discussion? Our Res Life rep. Oh, media.
I know I don't want to state why I abstained personally, but I think executive session would be also good, and I don't know, but I also would like to maybe argue a secret ballot for this vote, because due to retaliation, I feel this resolution should be voted through secret ballot.
Our Pro Temp.
I will also voice support for this too, as it did come up during the Pro Temp meeting, that there was discussion of whether or not this resolution should be on a secret ballot, and I just stated that if there was a need for it, to motion for it.
I yield.
Okay, thank you. If it looks like you're done talking, it's just gonna go that way. I know it's not official, but
I yield.
okay. Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to enter an executive session, including our treasurer and secretary stepping out?
Do we have a so moved? So moved by Senator Candela. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Cortez. Is there any discussion on moving into executive session? Yeah, you can leave at any time. Our audience member.
With regards to a secret ballot, I wholeheartedly agree. It is never my intent to intimidate anyone. I do so hope that I've never come across that way. With regards to executive session, though, this legislation was brought forth by a student petition that received close to 200 signatures. I feel like the discussion of it should be public, even if the vote itself is secret. I yield.
Senator Fisher.
Voting should, yes, be done in public, but I still feel there are some issues that need to be discussed in executive session. And I also want to say that a lot of our senators are very new, and this is an issue that not even I have faced because the last year's election went perfectly. So this is even an issue that's new to me, and I've been here for 2 years. So I still would argue we should do executive session. So I yield.
Our audience member.
I feel like is an important piece of information. I have been approached by 2 separate people asking for me to sign the petition that is being discussed. In both situations, nothing ever mentioned the return of the removed candidates. It was just contesting the results.
Our president.
So just for some clarity, oh my, there were 2 petitions that were passed around. You might have signed the other one, or I don't know if you signed it. I'm not going to say you did or didn't. There were 2 petitions that were passed around. This was a previous one that was passed around before the election was closed. The one that's being passed around currently, as far as I'm aware, is following the results of the election. I hope that answers some questions a little bit. And I'm going to yield to esports.
I'll admit I didn't read the petition, so it very well could have just been the old one. It was the ones I've been approached by have been in the past few days, so. I
Also,
apologize.
2 things. One, let's slow down on the side conversations, guys. Secondly, remember that we are in a discussion for the motion to go into executive session. So is there any more on that? Senator Velez.
Honest, I don't think any senators are or should be scared of Grayson. I mean, he literally opens his emails with "Hey friends," like he is not intimidating at all, and the discussion should be public. I believe that. I yield.
Senator Fisher.
I still think it doesn't mean that retaliation doesn't mean it's going to come directly from Grayson. It could be from the student body, not to say it. It could be from anyone who wouldn't be happy with our decision. That's why I feel executive session and secret ballot is necessary, because the retaliation could come from someone you know or like someone you don't know. That's why I yield. Sorry.
Senator Chaput.
Before me.
True, but that doesn't necessarily. You haven't. Is that like a rule that you have to do it by whoever raises their hand first?
Isn't that by Robert's rules? Oh, I apologize.
Yeah. As you know, Senator Chaput hasn't spoken yet about this. I think that it would be more worth to go to him, and then I'll call you after, if that's all right with you.
Question.
We have a motion to call the question. Does that have a second? Seconded by Senator Cortez. All right. All in favor of a call to question, please raise your hand. All who oppose?
Point of clarification, what are we calling the question right now?
Calling the question going into executive session with our treasurer and secretary also leaving the room too.
Okay.
I'll start the vote again. Yes. All in favor of executive session for the call to question? Call the question to go into executive session, please raise your hand. All right. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 9-0-0. We will now move into voting for the motion to go into executive session with the secretary and treasurer also leaving the room too. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 6-1-2. welcome back, everyone. We are still in. Oh, we had a motion to remove the second bullet points, and that passed. So now the resolution is just the first two the first bullet point under enacted and the first bullet point under resolved. The second bullet points in each of those sections are now gone. Senator Fisher. Yep. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Candela. Is there any discussion for doing this vote on secret ballot? Our treasurer.
I think that's a great idea. I yield.
Our Senator Fisher.
Try to limit any, if all, retaliation.
Yeah.
I yield.
Right. Is there any more discussion on doing a secret ballot? Right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we'll move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 9-0-0. Is there any more discussion for the resolution as a whole? Our treasurer.
Give me just a moment. I'm sorry, I'm pulling up a few notes. There are just some things with regards to this resolution that I would like to put out there. Obviously, I don't know what was discussed during executive session. If I'm being redundant, please feel free to cut me off. With regards to the removal of candidates from the election, it was stated that the reason we were removed was because we were elected officials. Elected officials have a disciplinary policy that they fall under. That is strike policy, right? It falls within our policies and procedures. I'm hopeful that most of the folks in this room are aware of it. I've not received a strike for my behavior. I've received no indication that I will be receiving a strike for my behavior. Yet, despite the fact that I've supposedly violated our policies and procedures as well as the Student Government at Utica Constitution to such a degree that warranted my removal from an election. Additionally, the Code of Conduct, right, the student handbook, outlines prohibited behavior, right? I don't expect everyone to have memorized the student handbook, so I'm just going to quote from the relevant section. Section 3 of the Student Code of Conduct outlines prohibited behavior, and one of these, which is the first item, bullet point 3, is tampering with, impeding, or coercively influencing the election process related to any SUNY Poly student association, or organization, my apologies. Student government is a student organization, and for clarification, the standard of proof for conduct cases is far less than you would see in a criminal proceeding, right? It is essentially preponderance of the evidence, which is a fancy term which means more likely than not that it's happened. Despite this relatively low burden of proof, no conduct cases have been brought against myself or Kaylee, despite there being, my understanding is about half a dozen students brought to conduct for tampering with the election with regards to posters. So my sort of question that I would like you all to think about is why myself and Kaylee were removed from the ballot, despite the fact that we have received no strikes for our behavior, despite having, violated those policies and procedures in the Constitution, and that we've received no conduct charges. I was told by members of election committee that it was not a concern of conduct, and it's simply the fact that we had this knowledge, and despite the fact that there is no expectation set up for candidates to report election concerns. I was told unequivocally
Just so you
that
know,
the
we
sole
go into open forum in a
I am
minute.
aware. I was
Okay,
told
wonderful.
unequivocally that the sole reason we were removed from the ballot is because we were elected officials. They have been unable to provide us with any documentation that would suffice for us to receive strikes for our behavior, nor have we been brought before the conduct board, despite other students having been brought before the conduct board for pretty much exactly what removed us from the election. I yield.
Our audience member.
Agree with Grayson's first point, and you guys should look into striking both Grayson and Kaylee. I yield.
Our pro temp.
Of voting of this resolution. I yield.
Point of order, we can't do that. Open forum past 1:55 per hour.
Yep, and we are now in open forum. Wildcat Media.
Open discussion of resolution. I'm getting the numbers.
It's okay.
2425 -40.
All right. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Chaput. Is there any discussion on reopening this resolution to the floor? All right. Seeing as there is no discussion, we'll move into. Oh, Senator Velez.
Stuff that it should be voted on this week, as also.
Is there any discussion for reopening? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we'll move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 9-0-0. All right. We are now in Resolution 2425-40. Senator Fisher. All right. We have a motion to call to question. We have a second from Senator Wu. Is there any? Oh, all in favor of a call to question on this resolution, please raise your hand. On the resolution of the petition. Huh?
There is no discussion or call to question.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do the, yeah. All in favor of a call to question on this resolution, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 8-1-0. All right, all in, oh wait, no, we're doing a secret ballot.
So, we're doing a secret ballot. I have 2 extra pens. I encourage all of you to use a black pen. That way, it's impossible for us to know. I ask that you write yay, nay, or abstain. Fold the sheet of paper before you hand it to me. I do not want to know. You can also say yes or no.
Lucas, please
Make sure it's very clear.
Please don't trip. Please don't trip.
I'm trying.
We don't like safety.
Do any more senators need a ballot? Does anyone need a pen? I'm going to ask that the president comes and counts with me, just to affirm what I said. I'm going to wait until everyone's done before I collect anything. Don't fold it up super tight like that. That also allows me to know exactly how many. For something like this, I encourage that you fold it once or twice for reasonable cutting.
Has anyone not voted yet?
Is everyone ready? Yes. Okay.
We're voting right now. We'll go back in the open forum in just a second. It's okay.
Has anyone's vote not been collected?
I wouldn't personally.
One last check. Has any senators not voted?
I have a quick question for our advisors. What do we normally do in this time while they're counting votes? Do we just like twiddle our thumbs and okay? Yeah, you can go anytime.
3-5-1, this bill or this resolution does not pass.
All right. Is there anything else for open forum? Our treasurer.
We're really putting the Chief Justice to work. I've got another petition to hand that calls for a revote and aims to contest the results of the 2025 spring executive election. I'd be happy to read the petition if you'd like, or if you'd like to read the petition.
Would you like me to read it?
You can read it.
I will read the petition. This petition aims to contest the results of the spring 2025 executive election. Its authors believe the results of the election do not reflect the true votes of the student body, as candidates were removed from the ballot less than 2 days before the election closed, nullifying hundreds of student votes without allowing them to recast their vote. This petition demands a revote of the affected positions so that the students who had their votes nullified will have a chance to recast their vote.
All right. Is there anything else for open forum? Senator Velez.
Say instead of those nullified votes to just everyone, because we've already said we can't specifically point out like.
You cannot nullify it, or you cannot change a petition after it's been submitted, but I can work. Are you an author on here? Yeah, I can work with you to make sure changes could be reflected in the resolution and or bill that is pushed.
Our president.
Just comment on that a little bit. It'd be a little awkward if you were a student that signed that, and then you find out like a week later after you signed it that something got changed in it. You're like, oh, I didn't know about that. It'd be a little awkward. And I'm gonna yield to our treasurer.
Yeah, and to clarify the revote, right, since we don't connect students with the votes that they have, a revote would just reopen voting, right? So it would just essentially do over the election with regards to voting. I'm going to yield to our media representative. Oh, 15 at the latest.
First of all, point of clarification, it didn't pass. Oh, it didn't. You mean, I mean, the one that we just voted on. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? Sorry, I got like hung up on that first part.
Because of the results of the motion, not motion, the resolution that was just voted on, what is, if the 2025 spring election was reopened, are those candidates on the ballot?
No.
Is there anything else for open forum? All right. Seeing as there's nothing else for open forum, do we have a motion to adjourn? All right. So moved by Senator Fisher. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Wu. Is there does anyone oppose unanimous consent to adjourning? All right. That passes.